Hello folks, I am thoroughly disappointed, and I don't want to start the video off today's adventures in a bad mood, so I'll leave that for a few minutes later. Other than that, we are generally trending eastward now. We're not going north, we're going east. I don't know if the camera's picking up the wrong direction, whatever. Unfortunately, the last capital city we have gone to was back in Wyoming with Cheyenne. We were too far away from both the capitals of South Dakota and Montana, so I'm excited to go to the capital of North Dakota, capital of the Peace Garden State. Take a look at this statue in front of us. This really embodies the spirit of North Dakota. A great pioneer family heading west, stopping by North Dakota to see, well, I don't know really what's going on today, but to see the wonder that is in this state, I guess. And we're looking at a family who maybe weren't of the most means. They probably didn't have a lot of wealth. A lot of people going west for a better opportunity, by the nature of their journey, did not have a lot of money. If they had money, they would have stayed east. But they were adventurous and brave, and so they ventured to these foreign frontier lands in North Dakota. But anyway, there's some things I gotta get used to. One, Central Time Zone. I got the privilege of going west, but I got to add an hour every time I cross the time zone into my day. Now going east, well, we're subtracting an hour. So here in Central Time Zone, oh man, I had to get a lot of sleep last night. I'd be an hour behind, an hour more tired. Yeah, get some sleep if you're going eastward from west to east. You're gonna need it. Two, it's getting colder and colder, and up here in the prairies of North Dakota, it's known for its hot summers, but the temperature dips dramatically low compared to a lot of other states. There's no ocean or body of water to moderate the temperature, so temperature changes are going to be strong, drastic, and it's already cold and windy right now. I should not have worn a short-sleeved shirt right now. No. Now, it might seem like a normal day, and generally, relatively it is. There's no snow on the ground, there's no torrential downpour. It's a nice blue sky, but it's very cold right now. And this is just middle of September. Imagine what it's like in the worst winters of January, February. Yeah, this is not a place you want to bear the burden of winters. This is a very harsh place, only meant for the people of the most fortitude and grit. Long ago, at the beginning of the 1800s, Lewis and Clark set out on an expedition, the Corps of Discovery as it was called, to find, discover, understand what lay beyond the realm of knowledge in the new America. And they crossed many different states, one of which being North Dakota. They stopped around this area to cross the Great Missouri River, a river that spans several different states. We've talked about the Missouri River before. And they stopped around this area. Later, westward states were finally being admitted into the Union. Territories were being established. All that fun stuff of westward expansion. Maybe not so fun for certain people, but on paper, it was an okay idea. And based on the events of Lewis and Clark, this place was then known as Missouri Crossing, the place that Lewis and Clark crossed this river. But the Northern Pacific Railroad, generally a regional railroad that was gaining traction in North Dakota, decided, you know what, we're gonna have a town here. And so, in 1872, this was officially established as a town called Edwinton. Huh, that's not the name of the place you're seeing in the title of this video. No, it was originally called Edwinton, but then, about a year or two later, the Northern Pacific Railroad thought it was a great idea to attract European and specifically German settlement and immigration here by calling and naming this area after the chancellor of the place from which these German immigrants came from, Germany. It was named Bismarck after Otto von Bismarck, who then at the time ruled the newly unified Germany. Yeah, for the largest time in European history, the modern countries we see today did not exist. They weren't these unified collective countries based on an ethnic group or anything. It was a collection of kingdoms and principalities ruled by certain people in various regions of the modern day European countries we know of. But Otto von Bismarck, he was one of those figures that unified his country. In his case, Germany, and a lot of the German immigrants carried that sentiment of the favorable unification of Germany with them as they went to the US. And so, in 1889, when North Dakota was admitted to the Union finally, Bismarck was chosen as the state capital. It has remained such ever since. So yeah, there you go, the fun little story of Bismarck, capital of the Peace Garden State. So here's where my jovial explanation of this place turns into disappointment and, frankly, embarrassment almost. So you see that building in front of us? It would look like a normal building in a downtown area, indistinguishable from any other building. But sadly, this just has to be the North Dakota State Capitol building. I know. I am just so embarrassed. The design is so boring. See, now you too are embarrassed for the state of North Dakota, because you can see that they don't get that fun Capitol building design or any kind of interesting architecture. It's just a simple office building. Like, come on. I don't know what to say. I'm just sharing that embarrassment with all of you, and I feel for the people of North Dakota. You all deserve a better state capitol building than this. I don't know, maybe we should see if the interior at all compensates for the horrendous exterior. Let's see if the North Dakota State Capitol building can redeem itself. Okay, so the external ugly facade of this North Dakota State Capitol kind of is explained with the interior. I mean, this looks like the most Art Deco, early to mid 20th century building I've seen. You could see it all around. I mean, look at where we're seated on these comfy leather couches. The explanation for all this is that the original state capitol building, which probably would have looked more similar to a lot of the other state capitals we visited on the coverage project, it got destroyed in a fire, and so a new one was built. I mean, I'll be the first to say it. This building on the inside looks like a cross between like a financial building you might see in New York City, and then like a vintage luxury hotel, and even in some parts of the building, a hospital almost. It's very weird, but yet it doesn't matter what the type of building may look like. It's also about the city itself, so we might as well go to the city of Bismarck. Now, I tend to think of North Dakota and this region of the country as a very, very friendly place. People are always willing to smile at you, have great conversations, And I'm sure the tour guides who work primarily for the tourism part of the state capitol building are very nice, and they'll help you around, but it seems like the state employees, no matter what state you're in, they're always kind of grouchy. I ventured past the conventional tourist parts of the building, maybe on accident. I was trying to figure out if I was going in the right place, and they looked at me as if I had the plague or something. How dare you venture into our grounds, you know? By the time we get out of this state capitol building, it's nice. I mean, the inside is a lot nicer than the outside, in my opinion, but there is a whole city to explore, so let's waste no time. Believe it or not, little old North Dakota has a lot of history. From the times of the Native American peoples here to the era of westward expansion, starting from the Lewis and Clark expedition to the era of homesteading, and not to mention the various ethnic groups from around the world that have settled here, such as, of course, the Germans like we talked about, but also people like the Norwegians. Norwegian culture is very strong in North Dakota relative to all the other states. There's a lot to learn from North Dakota, and one of the best places to learn about North Dakota heritage and history and culture and traditions and all that is the North Dakota Heritage Center and State Museum, right here in Bismarck, and right across from the state capitol. I'm pretty sure that this ugly building that we made fun of, kind of, actually quite a lot, is that state capitol building. And right over here is the State Museum. So let's visit this museum. Let's see if we can learn a thing or two about the contributions of North Dakota's culture. Incredible just to take a stroll down through the exhibits, seeing the authentic relics of North Dakota's past and getting into the present. There were some artifacts from, 5-10 years ago, because that is part of history. It's just the further you get past today's date, the more old these things get. So right now, we could be living through history. We could be talking about events that happen in our current day, and then 50 years down the line, we'll be talking about that old vintage history of 2022. So anyway, it is one thing to see a state capitol. It is another thing to see a museum, but to get the authentic real deal of Bismarck, North Dakota, we must visit the downtown. In today's age, Bismarck is celebrating its 150th anniversary. Here in 2022, it's 150 years removed from that year 1872. So, of course, why not give in to the celebration here? Here in the south central region of North Dakota, it's going to be defined less by the badlands we saw in the west and more so about these rolling hills in the center. And so, given that Bismarck, North Dakota has grown to become not only the largest city in the south central region of North Dakota, but also the second largest city in North Dakota as a whole, it's no question that Bismarck should be chosen if you want to have a business in North Dakota or just want to get a feel for the culture here. It is the hub for culture, economic activity here in North Dakota. Now you can see this city is kind of designed to be just a small city or a large town. Enough population to warrant an active community, but nothing that should be too large, like a major city. But that's what Bismarck is slowly turning into. It has an urban population of around 70,000, a little more than that. A metro population of a little more than 130,000 people. For a city of this size, its growth rate is extraordinary, and thus it's going through a lot of growing pains. Could the construction that we've seen all around, could the traffic congestion all be correlated towards this rapid growth? Oh man, look at all this traffic. Yeah, I'm very lucky that I was able to find a nice parking garage just to get away from all the action here. Ah yes, the Northern Pacific Railroad. This train depot station, well, it's not in its active use as it was in the heyday. This is the thing that started Bismarck to become this big city. If it wasn't for that railroad, who knows? Bismarck might not be what it is today. But since the trains aren't going by as much as all the traffic on the streets, it kind of renders this railroad to be useless. And it's a historical relic rather than a modern relic. But what do you do when you have a nice piece of valuable space, a building like this? Well, you turn it into something else for tourism or shopping. That's what's going on. This is going to be turning into the Bismarck Depot. And this is Camp Hancock. Once again, as I keep saying, the history of Bismarck is tied to the transportation industry, the trains, the railroads. This steam locomotive would be one of the trains you might see choo-chooing its way across this northern territory along the Northern Pacific Railway. This was the first railroad of its kind to transport goods and people long distance through the northern part of the country, in an era where you had to be concentrated towards cities. So a lot of the trains and railroads you would have seen were concentrated around the Great Lakes area. Nothing quite yet in the frontier, but around 1864 that all changed with this railroad. This little section preserves the history and culture behind this Northern Pacific Railway. Bismarck, just one of the many stops along the way. What we're looking at here is the Slant Indian Village. This village was named on a slant because, well, the landscape was on a slant as it approached the mighty Missouri River. The Mandan were an agricultural people who found home in this area of North Dakota. And this here village, recreated to show the village at its prime, I guess. Although hundreds of years ago this village would have been more than just a few mounds here and there. It would have been more than 50 of them. By the time Lewis and Clark arrived here in North Dakota, this village was in ruins. So at Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park, right outside of Bismarck, you can come here and understand the importance of the Mandan people and their village. Oh, this is amazing. I'm sure huts like these that were large enough to house many people, sitting, standing. Whoa. Well, I guess people weren't the only people living here. Birds have taken over, but perhaps there were many important rituals and ceremonies that were done inside these mounds. Perhaps various negotiations relating to diplomacy between tribes, among the tribe, were done in these huts as well. Actually, it must have been this larger mound at the very end of the village. Yeah, higher roof, much larger area, I don't think the benches were there around the time. But this is all a reconstruction. This is to emulate the feel that you might get at this Indian village. Now, even though this is generally a reconstruction, a recreation, very recent, because a lot was in ruins and abandoned even before settlement took place here in Bismarck. Although that is the case, this general area holds a special significance to the Mandan people of today. Wow, check this out. This is the Missouri River. Would you believe that we saw this nearly 2 months ago when we were in Kansas City? That was the beginning of this Frontier Americana tour. We're nearing the end and we see the Missouri once again. We have seen tributaries of the Missouri River like the Yellowstone River in Montana, the Little Missouri River, just a couple days ago in Theodore Roosevelt National Park. But this is where the waters make a confluence and the volume is much larger. It's a much wider river, a much deeper river, and this will go on for hundreds of miles more until it reaches St. Louis and converges, makes the Mississippi River a lot larger. So it is here we end today's adventures on these very calm waters. Yet you can see it's a river that has seen lots of history. From the natives to the Lewis and Clark expedition, they sailed up this river, this very river. It has seen the migration of thousands of settlers out west. Some would use this river, some would just see it and pass it. We could have taken one look at that ugly state capitol building and said, nope, we're not gonna spend a day here in Bismarck. But we gave it a chance and we saw that there is a lot more to this capital city than just an ugly capitol building. You see the river, you see the downtown, you see the culture that lies in the area. So make sure that when you plan your next journey across the country, mark Bismarck on your list, on your itinerary. That was a bad pun. I gotta come up with some more good jokes. Better than these stupid puns. The strong winds and the sound of the waters of this Missouri River might make one believe that they are maybe close to an ocean or a sea or something, but no. We're in North Dakota, the middle of the North American continent, and at least 1,000 miles away from any major, large body of water. The closest thing to us are the Great Lakes, and, well, that's still quite a journey's away. As you can also tell, it's a little too windy for my liking. If it weren't for the winds here, it'd be a nice, pleasant day at the precipice of the autumn season here in North Dakota. But yeah, these winds are strong. I'm tired. I'm ready to rest up here before we go on to our next destination. So I'm gonna close it out here, enjoying our day here in Bismarck, North Dakota, capital of the Peace Garden State, right alongside the great Missouri River. More travels to come. I will see you at the next location. One more thing. 30 state capitals, not too shabby. All right, goodbye everyone.